Being one of the best cartoons of all time comes with its costs, like being shamelessly copied, for example.
Google Dada.
But do you know the most famous copy of Bluey? Colors. The name of this cheap Bluey knockoff is CHILA, and the first thing its creators decided to copy was the color of their characters. The story portrays a family of chinchillas, small rodents, who spend their days playing together. The detail is that the series' protagonist, named Chip, is colored blue. Coincidence? Definitely not. While Bluey features characters of various colors like Stripe, Radley, and Bandit, the truth is the little blue dog has a reason for her color. It's a play on her breed's name, Blue Heeler. They really are called that because from a distance they appear blue. But why would we see a light blue chinchilla? Clearly for one reason only, to ride on Bluey's success and try to snag some unsuspecting fans. And as you'll see, the protagonist's color wasn't the only thing this show shamelessly copied. Dances. If there's one thing that grabs your attention in Bluey, it's the dance we see in its opening. Of course, this wasn't the show's first opening idea as seen in the pilot episodes. However, we can definitely say this was the best choice. After all, who hasn't tried to do the same dance steps as the Heeler family, right? The thing is, I believe the creators of CHILA must be big fans of Bluey too, and must be in that group of people like you and me who tried to do the Heeler family dance steps. That's because in the show that shamelessly copied almost everything from the Blue Dog series whenever possible, and even when it doesn't make much sense, they put the characters to dance. And it seems the rule is, the younger the character, the more they dance. That's because the character we see dancing the most is little Chubbly, who is the younger brother of the protagonist. He's kinda like an equivalent of Bingo, but even smaller. Seriously, he's the character who dances the most, followed by his parents. In fact, this is one of the points the show shamelessly copied from Bluey too. And if you think, or like us, are sure that CHILA is a copy of Bluey, comment down below, #copy. Family. Family is something we see CHILA at least took inspiration from Bluey, not to mention what I really think. The show features a couple with 3 children, plus a small pet that's a mix of a dog and a ladybug. But unlike our Australian dog show, this time the protagonist is the middle child, Chip. He has an older sister, Charla, who's 2 years older, and the dancing youngest we've already mentioned, Chubbly. And we can clearly see that their structure is strikingly similar to Bluey's. That's because, maybe you didn't know, but initially the creators of the Blue Dog series planned to expand the Heeler family and have a 3rd child. So much so that early promotional art for the show included Chili pregnant with a younger child. In fact, even this concept is well explored in the Bluey series, like when we understand the protagonist's mother wants more children, and even in the case of the unborn brother of the girls we discover in the episode, The Show.
So then they...
And confirm in the episode Rainbow, where we find out that Bluey is a rainbow baby, born after a couple has immense difficulty having children. Of course, all this is too deep and doesn't exist in CHILA, but certainly the same family structure exists in the show, a clear attempt to resemble the Heeler family as much as possible, but unfortunately they fell far short of that. Look, the show isn't bad or anything, but Bluey is certainly on a much higher level. It's like saying Bluey deserves an Oscar while CHILA deserves a handshake and a congratulations. And of course, we know that Bluey itself is inspired by another children's show, Peppa Pig, especially in this same aspect of family structure. However, Bluey has definitely surpassed Peppa Pig over time, as we show in this video comparing the two shows. But if you're still in doubt whether CHILA is a blatant copy of Bluey, the next point we're going to talk about will surely clear that doubt.
Here we go again.
Kitchen. If you haven't watched CHILA yet, if you ever do, you'll think, I think I know this kitchen, because without a doubt, this time the term inspiration can't even be used. Because this is really the point where the artists told their bosses when they asked what the kitchen of the show would be like, don't worry, I have something in mind, and then they turned on the TV to Bluey and took a picture and then replicated it. Practically everything in the CHILA family's kitchen is the same as the Heeler family's kitchen. If you don't believe it, look at this comparative image, where we can see, for example, that the yellow plank walls are completely identical. There's also a white wooden window that's basically the same in both houses. Even the kitchen towel hanging over the sink is in the same place and has the same color as what we normally see in Bluey. They thought we wouldn't notice. But the similarities don't just stop at the kitchen. Another main room in the CHILA's house is the same as the Heelers, the dining room, where the family gathers to do various things. Notice that the pattern between the two is basically the same, with a white window behind and the walls being practically identical. Even the seat colors of the chairs have the same shades of green. Really, in this case, it's quite obvious that they were too lazy to create something from scratch, just like throughout the entire show.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
First version. But the most interesting part of all this is that CHILA wasn't always like this, because initially the idea for the show was completely different and it would have had a very different look, which I have to admit, I found pretty cool. The show's pitch really showed a family of chinchillas, but the designs were completely different. In other words, they were quite different from Bluey, which we can't say about the version that was released. Because it's obvious that the characters are inspired by Bluey in various details, like their big eyes and rounded lines, unlike the first version that really seemed to want to be something new and original, even if inspired by Bluey or Peppa Pig. So we can't exactly call it a pilot episode, but it was certainly a concept completely different from what ended up being adopted. And if you remember well, the same thing happened with Bluey too, in the sense that its first version was different from the final version of the show, as we discussed in our comparison video between the pilot episodes of The Blue Dog and its final version. But in Bluey's case, the character designs became more interesting than the original version, creating something that didn't exist before, or at least not so similar to what it became. Because, I don't know about you, but I don't know of any other show that has characters physically similar to those in Bluey, at least not until CHILA was released. Of course, we know they are different species, but it's impossible to look at this copy and Bluey and not think, I've seen this somewhere before. But as we mentioned, in CHILA's case, the first version really seemed more appealing, as it had a style reminiscent of older cartoons, but improved. But what can you do, right? We'll never know how the show would have been in its original version. Who knows, maybe it would have been a great success. We may not know that, but we certainly know that you should subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos. A friend warns a friend. Names. Another tactic used by the folks who created CHILA was adopting the same pattern of names for their characters. Let me explain better. Bluey is a short name, just like Chip, with few letters and easy to remember. And this isn't exclusive to this show, as it's something that exists in practically all children's cartoons, like Peppa, Dora, Ben, and so on. The detail here is that in the CHILA family, everyone's names start with the letter C. The protagonist is Chip, as we've mentioned, his sister is Charla, and his little brother is Chubbly. Moreover, their dad is named Chum Chum, and their mom is Chinny. This reminds me of something, like Bandit, Bluey, and Bingo, where all names start with the same letter, but in their case it's B. This strategy helps children watching the show remember the characters' names more easily, but it's still a repetition of a pattern that worked well in Bluey. Dubbing and music. Another point they decided was important to copy was the style of character dubbing. In children's animation, there are two options. Either you have adults with childlike voices dubbing, or you opt for the second, more challenging option, using children to voice the characters. And surely this is something Bluey did very well, even keeping the identities of the child voice actors who voice all the characters in the series a secret. And at least this time, as a positive point, we have to say that CHILA did the same thing, and hey, it turned out pretty good too. The voices of the main characters are indeed performed by children who do their job very well, just like in Bluey, so we can say without a doubt that CHILA's dubbing is enjoyable. Additionally, another good thing the show borrowed from the Blue Dog series is the attempt to create relaxing and pleasant background music. In this aspect, they haven't come close to Bluey yet, but they're not doing badly either, as the instruments are quite similar to what we hear in the Healer family episodes.
Oh yeah!
In summary, CHILA isn't a bad show, and maybe you should check it out to draw your own conclusions. However, it really doesn't come close to the quality and depth of Bluey, which in the future will surely be considered one of the best cartoons in history, at least in my opinion.